Unveiling the Philosopher. Hello and welcome back to Philosophy of Mind. Have you ever felt like some ideas are so fundamental, so deeply woven into the fabric of how we think, that they must have always been there? Well, many of those ideas trace back to one extraordinary individual, the ancient Greek philosopher, Aristotle. He wasn't just a thinker, he was a scientist, a teacher, and arguably the person who systematized Western thought as we know it. But why is a philosopher who lived over 2,300 years ago still profoundly relevant to us, especially on a channel dedicated to the mysteries of the mind? That's what we're going to explore today, setting the stage for a deep dive into Aristotle's world and his groundbreaking ideas about the soul, life, and consciousness. Stay tuned, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to keep exploring the biggest questions with us. Who was Aristotle? A life dedicated to knowledge. Our journey begins in 384 BCE in the small town of Stagira, in northern Greece, where Aristotle was born. His father was a physician to the king of Macedon, which likely exposed young Aristotle to biology and observation from an early age. At around 17, he traveled to Athens and joined Plato's famous academy, the intellectual heart of Greece. He spent nearly 2 decades there, first as a student, learning from Plato himself, and later as a teacher. Imagine being trained by one of the greatest minds in history. This period was formative, grounding him in philosophical inquiry, but also sowing the seeds of his unique approach. While Aristotle deeply respected Plato, calling him a friend, he famously added, "But truth is a better friend." This simple phrase encapsulates their fundamental divergence. Plato focused on the eternal, non-physical realm of forms, perfect, unchanging templates of everything that exists. Knowledge, for Plato, was primarily a process of recollecting these innate forms. Aristotle, while acknowledging the importance of universal truths, insisted that the path to understanding reality began here, in this world, through observing the physical things around us. This empirical bent would define his entire philosophical project and his approach to studying the soul. After Plato's death, Aristotle left Athens and spent several years traveling and conducting scientific research, particularly in biology, making detailed observations of marine life. This period further solidified his empirical method. Then, around 343 BCE, he was invited by King Philip II of Macedon to tutor his young son, a boy who would become Alexander the Great. The exact impact of Aristotle on Alexander is debated, but the idea of the era's greatest philosopher educating its greatest conqueror is certainly compelling, linking abstract thought to the practicalities of ruling and understanding the world. Around 335 BCE, Aristotle returned to Athens and founded his own school, the Lyceum. Unlike Plato's academy, which focused heavily on mathematics and abstract forms, the Lyceum had a strong emphasis on empirical research and systematic collection of knowledge across all disciplines. Aristotle and his students gathered specimens, studied constitutions of Greek city-states, and compiled vast amounts of data on everything from animal anatomy to dramatic poetry. This was an early model of organized scientific inquiry and collaborative research. Aristotle's method, observing the world to understand it. Aristotle's method was fundamentally different from Plato's in its starting point. While Plato began with abstract principles and reasoned downwards, Aristotle began with observation and reasoned upwards. He believed that knowledge begins with sensory experience. We observe particular things in the world, this tree, that person, this event, and from these observations, through processes of memory, experience, and intellectual abstraction, we can arrive at understanding of universal concepts and principles. His approach was systematic and analytical. When studying a subject, Aristotle would typically, a. review the opinions of previous thinkers, doxa, on that topic, analyzing their arguments and conclusions. b. Present the phenomena or data related to the subject, based on observation and collection. c. Work through the difficulties and paradoxes, aporia, that arise from these opinions and phenomena. D. Offer his own solutions and systematic account, aiming to save the phenomena, to provide an explanation that accounts for the observed facts while resolving the philosophical puzzles. This method is clearly visible in De Anima, on the soul. Before presenting his own definition and theory of the soul, Aristotle dedicates significant space to discussing and critiquing the views of earlier philosophers, from the earliest materialists who thought the soul was composed of elements, to the Pythagoreans who saw it as a harmony, and Plato who viewed it as a separate, self-moving entity. He examines their arguments, points out inconsistencies or phenomena they fail to explain, and identifies the core questions that any adequate theory of the soul must address. Why, on the soul, matters for philosophy of mind. So, why is a book written over 2 millennia ago, titled On the Soul, so important for a modern channel focused on philosophy of mind? Because Aristotle's De Anima is arguably the very first systematic treatise on what we would now call psychology and the philosophy of mind. He wasn't just speculating, he was attempting to build a comprehensive scientific and philosophical account of what it means to be a living, perceiving, thinking being. Why, on the soul, matters for philosophy of mind. So, why is a book written over 2 millennia ago, titled On the Soul, so important for a modern channel focused on philosophy of mind? Because Aristotle's De Anima is arguably the very first systematic treatise on what we would now call psychology and the philosophy of mind. He wasn't just speculating, he was attempting to build a comprehensive scientific and philosophical account of what it means to be a living, perceiving, thinking being. Unlike Plato, who emphasized the soul's potential separation from the body, its immortality, and its connection to a divine realm of forms, Aristotle rooted the soul firmly in the biological. He saw the soul as the form of the body, what makes a living body actual and capable of life's functions. This concept, known as hylomorphism, is one of his most significant contributions to the mind-body problem and a core reason why his work remains a powerful alternative framework to dualistic views even today. De Anima, Structure and Core Questions. De Anima is structured into 3 books. Book I reviews previous theories of the soul, setting up the problems. Book 2 introduces Aristotle's own definition of the soul, the first actuality of a natural body having life potentially within it, and begins to explore the different capacities of the soul, starting with the nutritive and sensitive souls. Book 3 continues this exploration, focusing on the higher cognitive functions, particularly imagination, memory, and the intellect, Nous, including the famously difficult discussion of the active intellect. Throughout the work, Aristotle grapples with fundamental questions that are still central to philosophy of mind. What is the nature of life itself? What distinguishes living things from non-living things? What is the relationship between the soul, mind/life principle, and the body? How do we perceive the external world through our senses? What are imagination and memory, and how do they work? What is thought or intellect, and how is it different from sensation? What is the nature of consciousness and subjective experience? While his biological understanding was limited by ancient science, for instance, he thought the heart, not the brain, was the center of sensation and thought. His philosophical questions, his systematic approach, and his detailed analyses of mental capacities were revolutionary. De Anima provided the framework for discussing these issues for centuries and continues to offer insightful perspectives that challenge modern assumptions. Conclusion: the enduring legacy. Aristotle's life was a testament to the power of inquiry and observation. He moved from being Plato's star student to developing a distinct philosophical system grounded in the empirical world. His work De Anima stands as a foundational text in the study of the soul, life, and mind, offering a complex, nuanced view that still sparks debate today. Understanding Aristotle isn't just about history. It's about engaging with fundamental questions about what it means to be a living, thinking being, and seeing a powerful, ancient alternative to modern ways of thinking about the mind-body problem. This video is just the beginning. Join us in the next videos as we unpack Aristotle's hylomorphism, hierarchy of souls, theories of perception, and the mystery of the intellect. Don't forget to subscribe to Philosophy of Mind for more journeys into the depths of thought.